What would you do if you discovered that your cell phone had been hacked and that $24 million in crypto was gone? Well, it happened to Michael Terpin, founder of BitAngels, which is the world's first angel network for digital currency startups. And as a result, Michael is suing his cellular carrier, AT&T, for 10 times that amount. Today, we speak with Michael about the hack, the lawsuit, and the future of cryptocurrency. Hold on to your SIM card because there's some bad people out there. It's a shocking episode number 235 of the Bad Crypto Podcast.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, ignition.
Who's bad?
I can tell you, Mr. Joel Comm, I can tell you, I would be very sad if I lost $24 million. First of all, I would be very glad that I had $24 million. And then, oh my God, I would be so sad that I no longer had that.
Yeah, well, he's not happy about it. And we're going to dig in with this discussion with Michael Terpin today. And welcome to the Bad Crypto Podcast, the show for the crypto curious, crypto serious, and where Michael is concerned, the crypto furious, because he is not happy about what happened.
Maybe a little delirious, too, after that. I'd be like, I'd be so furious I was delirious.
You just like the rhyming.
Oh, my God.
Mr. Travis Wright, we have written a new pledge for the listeners of the Bad Crypto Podcast, the citizens of the Republic of Bad Cryptopia. And if you'll just repeat after me, are you ready?
I'm ready.
I pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
to Bad Cryptopia.
To Bad Cryptopia.
And the republic for which it stands.
And the republic for which it stands.
One blockchain.
One blockchain.
Under Satoshi.
Under Satoshi.
With liberty.
With liberty.
And coins for all.
And coins for all.
You don't have to put your hand on your heart when you say that, though. You don't have to stand or salute or anything.
You got to put your hand on your pocket.
Yeah, something like that. Hey,
so
let's give shout-outs.
So nobody steals your $24 million in cryptos.
Right. Let's give shout-outs to our sponsors. We've got two of them we want to bring to your attention this week. The first one is Divvy. Divvy's been on the show before. They're a crypto app that makes it easy to earn, transact, and store your tokens. It's the first crypto ecosystem powered by masternodes that can be installed in one click. You could begin earning crypto at the click of a button without this crazy setup. In fact, I think it took Ryan on our team all of 5 minutes to set up a gold masternode on Divvy. Isn't that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Once it sets up, then it's actually, now since you're staking all this crypto, you actually are earning crypto each and every day, each and every minute, actually earning crypto. Pretty cool.
Yeah, Divvy was created by the Divvy Project. They're a team committed to reducing the friction tax of cryptocurrency through a user experience and user interface. You can learn more about it at diviproject.org, spelled D-I-V-I, project.org, and go to the show notes for this episode. You can find links to their community presence as well at badco.in/235.
Yep. And also, we want to thank Loyak. Loyak is another one of our sponsors this episode, and they are actually enabling enterprises to securely collaborate and share data with their partners. And this results in, better security, more efficiency, and governance using this blockchain fabric. And they are the first tokenized data container to secure business interactions and transactions. And so this was actually created by a bunch of Silicon Valley veterans. They have worked with some really, really big companies. They have done some really, really big things. And so if you are an enterprise company thinking about building an enterprise blockchain, this Loyak might be for you. You can check them out at loyak.io. That's LOYAKK.io.
This has been a long-awaited interview. The anticipation for a day such as this has made my heart all aflutter and given Travis Wright butterflies in his brain.
Really? That's nice.
True.
Actually, this guest right here has been one of the top 5, top 10 most requested guests to come on the Bad Cryptos.
Yes, his name is Michael Terpin. He's a serial entrepreneur. I don't know if he's ever invented any cereals, but he has founded leading companies in PR, internet marketing, digital innovation, cryptocurrency, and newswire distribution. He's well known for his role as the founder and CEO of Transform PR. These guys have represented dozens and dozens of ICOs. He also co-founded Market Wired, which is the first internet-based company, Newswire, sold it for just a paltry $35 million back in 2006. And in the crypto space, you may have heard about the fact that Michael got hacked. Ouch, $24 million in altcoins taken from him, and now he is leading a lawsuit against AT&T to recover the $24 million that were stolen, as well as $200 million in damages. And we're going to find out all about that today. Michael, welcome to Bad Crypto.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
When did you go down the crypto rabbit hole? Because I know you've been doing technology and all that for a long time, but what led you to Bitcoin?
So I'm always looking at what's next and what's cool and what I can learn about before journalists do, so that they come to me, and then all my clients get a lot of attention because I'm the one that explains it to them. I've been in the PR and marketing sector since the early 90s. So started out with multimedia back when people would spend $1,000 to put a CD-ROM on their computer and say, wow, we can actually make things move around and have music and video at the same time. And then that market kind of morphed into the early internet days, and I saw that that was going to be a huge, change of technology, and that was going to last for decades. And I got really excited. So I'd say that I have the blessing and the curse of being really early to technology. So I have to explain and defend things when nobody else gets them. But, I find some really cool things early. I'd say that there were probably only maybe 3 technologies. I was a little kid when the PC came out, but within my adult life, there were maybe 3 technologies that I was like, oh my God, this is going to change the world. And it wasn't local area networking. It was the internet when I first saw the web. And you could I had played on the internet before a little bit when it was in college type things, and you'd go Archie and Gopher and Veronica and ping things. And it was very, very hard to use, and it wasn't graphical. And there were people still saying, oh, this is going to change the world. I was like, really? It's slower than a fax machine. And you have to look beyond sort of the day's GUI problems into what the future can be if it becomes popular. And as soon as I saw Mosaic and I saw that it ran on a Windows computer and you could type in www.louvre.fr and you would see the Mona Lisa and you could sort of, flip between paintings in the Louvre, I got it. And I saw that, it was going to change the world, and it still, continues to. And I think that the second one was probably social media. When I saw my first social network, I saw that was going to help connect the world. And that was way before Facebook, before MySpace even. It was Rise, R-Y-Z-E, which was in 2001. And it did pretty much what Facebook does, but there was only maybe 10,000 people on it. And I got on LinkedIn in the first, 15,000 people, and it was still pretty raw back then. And so I got in 2013, early 2013, just like getting into social media in 2001, 2, and getting into the internet in 93. I actually thought I was late because I knew people had gotten a year or two earlier. And I almost got in 2012. I was invited to a conference that I was actually doing the PR for, that Bitcoin was one of the topics, and I kind of heard a little bit about it. I was misinformed because I didn't really do a lot of research. I thought it was maybe another Second Life type thing. And so I ended up going to a different conference instead. And that cost me a lot of money because I would have had the same reaction if I'd gone to that conference and seen, Ryan Singer, who's now with Chia, and Jared Kenna, who were running the first American Bitcoin exchange at the time, speak when Bitcoin was $4 in April of 2012, as I did a year later when it was $120. And I was like, okay, I get it. This is going to change the world. This will be as big as social media, possibly be as big as the internet and the web itself. And so that was early 2013. And you got the phrase correctly. I fell down the rabbit hole. I remember just, looking around at the San Jose Convention Center and going, what do I do with all this information? This is a room that's going to be, the size of the world pretty soon. And I just wasn't sure whether it's 5 years or 20 years, but I knew it was going to be something that billions of people used.
Yeah, it's been an amazing ride. Those folks who got in at $4 and got out at $20,000, that's a pretty good investment.
There's unfortunately more people who got in at like 10 cents and got out at $1 and said, "Oh my God, I nailed it."
Yeah, I nailed it. I made 10x on my money, Mom. Aren't you proud of me?
Yeah,
that's so good. Little did they know that that the march was just beginning. So you have a PR firm, Transform PR, and you have.
So let me sort of update you. So Transform PR is the PR division of a larger entity called Transform Group, transformgroup.com. And I've been in the PR space and then in the newswire space, and also spun off a few entrepreneurial companies that had nothing to do with PR marketing, and including the first equity crowdfunding company in early 1996, way ahead of its time, called Direct IPO. And, I got it in early 2013, and I decided in about mid 2015 that rather than being a PR firm that's primarily known for blockchain, I wanted to morph to being a blockchain firm that's primarily known for PR, or at least is initially known for PR. And so Transform Group, just transformgroup.com, does have transform.pr, because I'm also Puerto Rico resident. .pr is the country code for Puerto Rico, even though it's not a country. And but we also have Transform Strategies, which is run by Enzo Villani, who was the former head of strategy for NASDAQ for 6 years, and I worked with at MarketWire. He was the one who actually ended up, starting the division that bought MarketWire for NASDAQ for $200 million from the people we sold to 35, and then they sold it for 335 to Apollo, which is where it's currently sitting. We also have the Transform Events Group, which is best known for the Coin Agenda of conferences, which are 3-day conferences 4 times a year in Asia, North America, Europe, and the Caribbean coming up in March, and my home territory of Puerto Rico for the 3rd year. And this is the 6th year that we're putting on conferences in Las Vegas. And then BitAngels, which I started actually the first day that I was in Bitcoin. I met David Johnston, who was a young, bright entrepreneur and an investor in Bitcoin. But he was developing actually an email software, and I kind of slowly talked him into dropping the email software and just going all in on Bitcoin. And we started the first angel group, BitAngels, together. Literally the day we met, we put up a website and sent out a list and had our meeting, our sort of founding meeting with 30 people who were really big angels in the space during the Bitcoin Foundation conference, the first one. And he's, of course, gone on to great things, is one of the top, advisors and investors in the space. He is a family office now that spun off a fund that is the first private equity fund in tokens. And, we've remained good friends. And I kind of took over the BitAngels brand, and we started the dApps fund together, which invested in, it was the first digital currency fund in early 2014. And we raised a whopping $6 million, and all of it in Bitcoin and Counterparty and Mastercoin. And we put $1 million of it into Ethereum. So did pretty well, 30 cents a token.
Nice. Yeah, and actually we had an interview with Rachel Wolfson, interviewed Talking dApps with David Johnson in the very first episode of one of our spinoff shows called the CryptoChick.io /001. If you guys want to listen to that interview with David Johnson. Yeah, it was great. Great call.
That's a lot of words you said there, Michael, but when are you actually going to do something with your life? I mean, come on, it's.
Well, I basically, I look for synergies in things, and I'm not like opening a pizza parlor, right? I mean, everything that I'm doing has a reason, and it sort of supports everything else that I do. So the investments, I'm also a partner in Alphabet Fund now, which is $400 million under management. It's not part of Transform Group. I'm just separately a partner there, and my personal investments help, be able to fund startups that I find through BitAngels, through Coin Agenda, through leads that I get from Transform Group and the strategy side, and we can help, give them visibility on the PR side. And, they all just sort of like work together well. And that's
if anybody could launch a pizza parlor, I suppose it would be you, because it seems like a lot of what you touch turns to gold. So congratulations on that. I want to get your take on the state of crypto in general. The Bitcoin, both its prices in the markets and the implementations and beyond Bitcoin. Where do you see the market at right now, and when do you see things changing, at least visibly?
So, complex, loaded question. I'll start with the simple answer. I don't think we've yet veered from the original plan for Bitcoin, which was that you have the first 10 million given out before anybody thought it was worth anything in order to encourage early adoption. And then you cut the rewards, and it takes a little while for the lower inflation to catch up with the fairly steady demand. I mean, we have more users this year than we did last year, despite the price being at a fraction. I mean, forget about, people searching, terms in Google. I mean, there are 50 million estimated users of cryptocurrency globally. It was 25 million this time last year. And when I got in early 2013, it was about 300,000. And if you go back 2 years earlier, it was like 10,000. And a year before that, it was a couple hundred. So, I mean, that's the same path, if not faster, than the internet and social media and, Facebook followed. I remember, as they say, history doesn't necessarily repeat, but it often rhymes. And, there were a lot of skeptics about the internet. And in 1995, I still have a copy of this, Newsweek magazine made a, very snarky, takedown of the internet, saying, look, the internet's a joke. It's really kind of a toy, and nobody's going to go and read, a fine magazine like Newsweek on their computer. They want the shiny, something they can hold, something that's not going to be ephemeral. And, the internet's not really going anywhere. E-commerce is a joke. There's more people at like a small shopping mall and in a small town in the countryside than there are e-commerce users globally. Well, that was 1995. And yeah, there was only about maybe 40 or 50 million users globally of the internet back then. And it was about double from 94, when I remember the number was 20 million. And only about 2 or 3 million of those were in the US. And today it's 4 billion. And, and Newsweek magazine is no longer around.
And don't forget that Jeff Bezos is a fool for thinking he could sell books out of his garage.
Right. And again, he was mocked repeatedly. I knew an angel investor just threw him out of his office and said, son, selling books on the internet is the stupidest idea I ever heard.
I'd like to interview that guy now, wouldn't you? He'd be like, oh, yeah, I blew that one.
But, I mean, what happens, and I mean, I've just seen this happen too many times before, and you can read in the history books, but you live through it over and over and over again. You just sort of are reminded that, almost all of these disruptive technologies go through these phases. And, it's attributed to Gandhi, but apparently I think it may have been said by someone else. But it's, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win. And, that happened with everything from the automobile, when there were all these laws in England about you can't, you don't want to scare the horses. And so you got to have a person walk in front of your automobile waving a flag to show that the automobile is coming. Well, obviously they decided that, it does cause some dust and people sometimes get hurt, but the good to society is better than the bad. And in 20 years, you'll have people who don't remember the early days when, everybody who had Bitcoin must be a drug dealer or a terrorist. And, we're just going through those growing pains right now.
Yes, it's been you've been on one heck of a ride. I mean, looking at your career from, starting out doing the PR and selling that, and then getting into crypto, and then, doing the PR and building the Transform Group and all the stuff that you're doing. I want to ask specifically around ICOs and STOs, because, you've worked with well over 100. And we've seen a very interesting rise from 2016 and then the boom that happened in 2017, and then the kind of the lull that's happened since near, mid 2018. Where do you see ICOs and STOs, the security tokens? Where do you see this space evolving over the next couple of years?
So first of all, in terms of the utility tokens, as they call them, and again, these names get renamed after they fall out of favor, but they stay more or less the same. The .com craze, right, was widely discredited. Everybody wanted to be in the .com. You just put the word .com on anything, and all of a sudden, was $100 million IPO, even if it had no revenue, and raised $50 million to get no revenue. But they would like say, hey, but we're so-and-so.com. We're going to disrupt the, breakfast cereal space or whatever. And then all of a sudden it was pointed out that they were losing money hand over fist, and the bubble popped, and, the whole market dropped, and everybody said, oh, excuse me, the internet, what were we thinking? That's the stupidest idea. And brick and mortars are always going to win. And obviously it got overly exuberant, and then it got, as they said, blood in the streets. And, Rothschild centuries ago was the person who said, you must buy when there's blood in the streets, even if it's your own blood. And, if you were buying Amazon at $4 after it had been $1,000, you would have been the best investor in the world at that point, even though all your friends would say, what are you, stupid? It's going to zero. It's a .com. It's stupid. And we're at the same place right now, I'd say, with the ICO market. ICO is really a bad term. They should have called them token starters, because they're kickstarters for tokens. You're not getting any equity in the company. It is, it's been sometimes misused, but I think it's also been misclassified by the SEC, because all of the companies that they've gone after, they go and say, hey, you were unregistered security and you did fraud and blah, blah, blah. But they always go after somebody who did fraud, because if they catch you with fraud, you don't have to prove the other charges. Whereas, if they were going after somebody who didn't commit any fraud and simply, offered what would be very defensive under many people's interpretation of the 1940s Howey test, they would probably lose in many courts, and they don't like losing in court. So they're out there. I was told that one person in the SEC enforcement group said, we're just going out and clubbing baby seals.
Ow, that's a horrible visual.
They're finding companies that basically can't defend themselves and declaring victory, and they think that's going to slow the market down and we'll get rid of the bad guys. Well, you don't get rid of the bad guys. They just find out another way of being bad guys. They look for another scam.
That's true.
What you're doing is you're getting rid of the good guys. I mean, there were so many really great ideas for legitimate tokenization of large industries with people who could do it, who were in Silicon Valley and had a single round of like venture funding, and their VCs just said, got to talk to the lawyers. And the lawyers are like, nope, you're going to go to jail. You can't do it. Just take another venture round. And they just crushed their whole plan. So I think several things are going to happen. First of all, the market has gone up and down in somewhat predictable movements based on the supply and demand of Bitcoin. When you have the halving, if you take the first halving and you overlay it to the second halving on a logarithmic scale, it's shocking how similar it is. I mean, you had basically the first halving was $4 in November 2012, and it then went up the end of the next year, so the end of 2013, in November, December, to about 1,200. So that was 300x, but it was a smaller, universe. And then it crashed down to about $150. And that was in January 4 years ago. So we are literally 4 years exactly from the last capitulation moment. So barring anything really catastrophic, I don't see us going too much further down, even though a lot of the short sellers are trying. Jamie Dimon, who's never seen a Bitcoin that he didn't hate, even though, JP Morgan divisions have actually, done quite a bit of investing and trading in that space. I think just lately had some analysts say, well, it's going down to 1,000 because, it's not backed by the government. They're going back to like the 2013 arguments. It's like, no, it's not going to replace fiat currency. It doesn't mean that it's not going to be a good hedge along with gold. And if it gets to be 20% of the size of the gold market, that's about $2 trillion, and that's $100,000 Bitcoin. So, that's sort of the cycle that we're in. And the ICO market is not immune to the overall wealth effect of crypto, right? So we launched the first ICO with BitAngels and with Transform Group in August of 2013. And that was when Bitcoin was at $100. But that was a high point considering that started that year, it was $11. So people still felt at $100 per Bitcoin that they had some Bitcoin wealth, and they wanted to diversify it into new tokens. And, and Mastercoin, had a pretty wild ride. I mean, it went up like from $1, because it was like 100 Mastercoin per Bitcoin, to about, I think at its peak, it was around $200. So it was about a 200x, but a lot of it was also just the growth of Bitcoin, because Bitcoin went up about 10x as well. It was a wild ride. And then it was a wild crash but what happened was the crypto winter of 2015, literally, even though in 2014, you had some of the most successful companies that grew out of, difficult ICOs. I mean, Ethereum, as much as it was beloved by the crowds, and same thing with MaidSafe, people cheered on stage. It took a month for them to raise $18 million. That would have been considered like a failure in 2017. And then it took them a year before they shipped anything. And, you could have still bought Ethereum at under $1, even as late as, late 2015, early 2016. Really what brought the market back was Augur. Augur sort of, near the end of the summer of 2015 was the first ERC20 token. And that just got people thinking, oh, you can go and build things without having to build a new blockchain from scratch. You can go and do an innovative business model on top of Ethereum. And that sort of led to the DAO, which, got people's attention because of so much money they raised. It later got attention because they did violate securities laws. It's amazing that nobody at the time pointed that out, because, I mean, there's a lot of gray areas. That one is not a gray area. It's give us your Ether. We're going to invest it, and we're going to give you back the profits. That's a security by definition. But these other ones that are, well, I suppose because you're a token and you're going to benefit a group of people and the product's not built yet, you're probably a security, but we're not going to say you're a security. So the FUD of the SEC, along with the fact that we're at the time of market that bad news gets accentuated because of supply and demand, driving things further down, and good news like SegWit coming through properly, and New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ saying they're going to have Bitcoin exchanges. All that stuff's been ignored. The good news gets ignored and the bad news gets accentuated. Really, the thing that's going to start driving us up again, if the cycle continues the way it's been, is going to be the next halving. Because as long as you have people continuing to adopt Bitcoin, and in another year, the number of Bitcoin users is higher than 50 million, not lower than 50 million, I don't know anybody who started using Bitcoin that then said, oh, forget about this, I'm never going to use this again.
Just the people that like rode the wave and the hype, last year.
I didn't say bought Bitcoin. I said
used it. Yeah.
So I think a lot of the ones who said, oh, I'm going to open a Coinbase account, I'm going to put $1,000 in them, it's going to make me a millionaire. And then all of a sudden it went down to like 300. They panicked and said, boy, was I stupid. But they probably never ever used it. They probably never bought anything with it. They probably never saw how decentralized systems worked. They never really saw what it did. They just simply were, going into Vegas and putting a chip on red or black. So the actual number of people using Bitcoin and using different cryptocurrencies, I think what's going to reignite the utility token wave. And just like .coms, when Facebook and Google went out, they didn't call them .coms. They called them internet companies. I think the next wave of ICOs are not going to be called ICOs. I'm already hearing IEOs for exchange offerings. You have a bill in front of Congress now, if the government opens up again, called the Token Taxonomy Act, which was proposed by Warren Davidson, a Republican, now has to be reproposed by a Democrat, Darren Soto from Florida. But it basically is saying we are driving business outside of the United States for no reason other than arguments between regulators. The SEC, without actually making any laws or even any proposed laws, has implied that everything is probably a security. The CTFC has already said that pretty much every token is a commodity and should be regulated that way. FinCEN had said, well, probably everything's money. OFAC has said it's perhaps foreign currency. And the IRS has said it's property. Nobody has said it's a product, and nobody has said it's software. These things cannot all be true. So I think that you have to go and have Congress go and, say, we're going to decide what's what. And then within your bounds, the things that count as securities, SEC go and enforce. But under the Token Taxonomy Act, I think they had, if it was not to fund a single company, but to have usefulness within a decentralized network of software services. I mean, it's similar to what already passed unanimously in Wyoming in many ways, but would be federal. That would reignite the whole ICO market. They just wouldn't call it ICOs. They would call them open blockchain tokens, I believe is the phrase they're using, and you'll have an OBT wave. But the other thing also is that you have to actually have some of these things built and working, right? Ethereum did its ICO in the summer of 2014. It did not ship until the end of 2015, and it was horrible. The first transactions took, I think, something like 100,000 confirmations for one transaction to go through. So this is still early technology. And, I've seen negative stories about, there's only 50,000 people who are actually active users of dApps. That means it's a dead market. No, it means it's an early market. How many people were using e-commerce in 1993?
It does seem like the dApp market is really starting to take off, because we've looked at, EOS and Tron. And if you look, there's a website called dApp Radar that we've been monitoring that a friend of the show, Kurt Braggett, told us about. And we were looking at it. And it's like the top Ethereum dApp is number 37 on the list. And then, but I'm looking at that list and we're going, are these real numbers or are these bots that are generating these transactions?
I think a lot of them are real numbers. I mean, it depends which dApps you're talking about, because I don't think we have the sophistication yet to be able to know what to measure. Just like in the early days of the internet, people were bragging about how many hits they had. Well, a hit is simply a call to a page, right? So you could just have a lot of graphics on the page and quadruple your number of hits. Then all of a sudden they realized, unique users and page views are what we want to advertise to. Mm-hmm. And we're at that stage now trying to figure out what metrics matter. They're probably similar ones to the gaming industry, daily average users and monthly average users and return visitors. A company that we launched in 2017, Pre-Search, is a decentralized search engine out of Toronto. And they've been, relatively quiet developing things. We're still working with them on the PR side. We launched their ICO. And they've just been slowly building steam, and they have 750,000 registered users who hold the cryptocurrency.
Wow.
And they've got average daily usage of about 250,000 a day. Doing searches, and you just do a search on Pre-Search, and you get paid in crypto.
I think a lot of people, because it's not being mentioned in the media, think, well, there's nothing going on. But, all of a sudden, it's going to hit all over again, and there's going to be this wave of coverage. That something's going to set it off. You're a wealth of history lesson and insight, Michael. Appreciate that. I want to hear the sad story of what's going on that hopefully will have a really pleasant resolution, both for you personally and for the industry. You and Mr. Travis Wright have something in common, and that both of you were victims of a SIM swap. Although Travis ended up not losing anything, you have a different story to tell. So why don't you take us through that?
Sure. So this was January 7th of 2018, so a little over a year ago. It was the height of the altcoins, and I didn't. I'm not perfect in my judgment of the market. I mean, if I was looking back, I should have sold every Bitcoin I had on December 20th. My fund actually did. But almost nobody else who was managing it. There's just the bot said, it's going to go down from here because of all the short action and this and that and the other thing. I certainly sold enough that I feel like I took a fair amount off the table, but I still had an awful lot of altcoins because we've launched over 100 altcoins. ICOs, and in many cases we'd get paid a combination of, cash, equity, Bitcoin, and the native token of the company. And in many cases, the native token of the company takes a while to build. And we'll acquire them for tenths of a penny and wait until they go up to something. And some of them never get up there, and some of them, we do real well on. And so I had a few that were not ERC20 tokens, so they couldn't be put on a Trezor or a Ledger. There's a lot of fake news that came out at the time. They said, "Oh, well, he should be suing Coinbase. That's the real what he should be going after." It's like, none of this was Bitcoin, and I don't have a Coinbase account. Mm-hmm. So all three tokens were native staking tokens that basically, you native or staking tokens that I could leave on the centralized places that. Exchanges that I would sell them on, but there's a risk there too, because I got hacked in the Cryptsy hack a few years ago because I had a whole bunch of Ripple that was on there because I didn't really like their wallet. I thought it was kind of clunky it deprecated a lot, and I thought it was actually safer on an exchange. And after that, I haven't really trusted exchanges too much, and I try to only put things on exchanges when I'm actually trading them. So, I have things in, password protected files for anything it can't fit in a Trezor or a Ledger or in a safe. This gang was really good. I mean, this gang, it's, we know now who it is. So, because, an update, if you've been following the news, is I sued AT&T for their part in letting someone, access my extra security passcode. Well, the first time I got hacked was and I already had pretty good security, in middle of 2017. I didn't lose that much. The time was worth about $60,000. And most of that was because someone broke into my Skype and impersonated me and got people to send the Bitcoin. I only lost a half a Bitcoin of my own. And that was the only exchange that did not support Google 2FA, because every exchange that I'm on, I have Google 2FA. And if you have Google 2FA, unless they physically have the device that you have your authenticator on, and they have to know where that is, and whether it's an Android tablet, hidden in a bookshelf or in a safe or whatever, they're just not going to get it from, thousands of miles away. But if you don't have that, they can go in, unfortunately, to the phone companies and, either go into a store with a fake ID and pretend to be you. That appears to be what happened in the first hack in Boston, where I had a smaller loss. Or they call in and they basically give your social security number, which they can get off the dark web. They, or as has been widely reported, they bribe people. So they'll bribe people who have access to these numbers. And that's the thing that needs to change in the industry, is that the four major carriers in the U.S. and really globally need to offer everybody the option of high security, because they don't charge for it, but they don't let people know that it's available. And when you have high security, you should be told that when you opt in for high security, not only do you get a long, in my case, it was 6-digit, but it should probably be even longer, passcode that cannot be changed by anybody, cannot be reset, but it also cannot be accessed by customer service. And right now, it can be accessed by customer service, including people like in India and the Philippines. And, that's not secure at all. That would be like somebody having the PIN to your ATM in customer service, and they just go in and start, draining money because they've got the PIN and they can make a fake card. And unfortunately, this kind of stems back to when you didn't used to have the ability to port a number from one carrier to another. And there was a Supreme Court case that said this is your right to be able to, if you have a number you've been using for years and you no longer want to be with AT&T, you want to move to T-Mobile, it's your right to take the number with you. So they had to make it easy to port. And this is long before SIM swapping became a problem. The second it became a problem, and it's not just crypto, people also steal Instagram accounts that are valuable or have big followings, because up until recently that was their only way of verification of 2FA. Or they'll go in and they'll hack into your email and they'll order new credit cards using information they find. I mean, there's all sorts of bad things they can do once they steal your digital identity. So several of the carriers have reacted with basically having their high level of security include a SIM lockdown. So with T-Mobile, for example, who's had some pretty notorious hacks, these days, if you have a high security account with T-Mobile, they give you the 6-digit, which I think is still vulnerable at all of these, but you have to, if you go into a store or you call in, they won't move it unless it goes through the fraud department. It's a lockdown. I mean, I literally went in to a T-Mobile store and did an upgrade on one of my phones, which is a number that nobody knows, that everything else just kind of goes into. That's one of the ways of keeping safe. And they said, oh, you have a SIM lockdown. We can't give you a new one. You have to remove the SIM from your old phone. And I go, that's fine, I will. That wouldn't help a hacker. So this is the way it should be.
Yeah.
And this
And
is
I got to share with you that was a result of T-Mobile. See, I got hacked by T-Mobile, and I went up all the way up to the CEO, and I was angry, and I was letting them know what was going on. I go, dude, there are people. This was in October of 2017, and I was like, people are being targeted if they're in the crypto space, and if people assume that they have crypto, well, then they're going on the dark web. They're looking for any information they can find about those people, and they are calling T-Mobile, they're calling AT&T, and they're getting people to do these SIM card swaps. And so they didn't even have, at the time that I messaged them, they didn't even have that next level of security on there. I bitched so much that they were saying that we're going to fix this. And that was one of the resolutions that they came up with, was that 6-digit PIN. But still, there's a problem there, Michael, because we were just having a conversation with Oz Sultan earlier today, and he worked with telecom companies for a long time, and he works with security, and he said that Sprint is the most secure telecom company in the United States right now, just because of the way that they're not able to do the SIM card swaps like the other companies are. But man, AT&T, it's so easy, and T-Mobile, they said all you had to do was become a T-Mobile reseller, and you got access to the full end back end. And what was happening is that if somebody wanted to get somebody in crypto, all they had to do was go on the dark web, contact these people who had a T-Mobile authorized reseller account, and then get them to switch it without even talking to anybody in customer service.
That's correct.
Crazy.
That's correct. And so I'm a former investigative reporter. That's how I started out my career. I'm on the board of the Newhouse School at Syracuse. It's the top journalism school in the country. Mm-hmm. And I still remember a lot of my, sort of early investigative reporter days at a, small newspaper in upstate New York. And so, while the FBI and the Secret Service and Homeland Security and the React Task Force and every 3-letter, they weren't interested when it was 60,000, it was 24 million, I got some attention. And so everybody's out looking for these guys. And of course, other people have been caught as well. And so when we saw enough other people, like Joel Ortiz was the first one that really got caught pretty much red-handed, like getting onto a flight with a bag of 85 Sims and cash and, photos of him holding up, 7 bottles of Dom Perignon at the same time, and the kid's 20. And, that was really when the story of this whole OG users gang broke. There's a really good motherboard series about a lot of it, and so we quoted a lot of that in our lawsuit. We tried to settle with AT and said, look, we know that this happened and you're liable, and just give us the money that would not have been stolen had you been more responsible. And their response has been, no, we have nothing to do with it. We're not criminals. Go after the criminals. And and they've just been wasting our time. They wanted to go and mediate. And then at the end of the mediation, they said, our offer is 0 because we just wanted to show you why we don't owe you anything. And so we sued. And, and then they upgraded their law firm. They started with a California law firm that was across the street from my law firm. I hired, one of the best litigators in the United States, Pierce O'Donnell from Greenberg Glusker. He's got $5 billion worth of judgments. He's got the largest judgment ever in the state of California. He's a badass, and his team is really good. And so they basically, looked at my case and they said, oh, well, T-Mobile's contract says that, you have to arbitrate and you can't even sue them for their own fraud. And they said, that's unconscionable. We're going to sue them in federal court. right now, I guess Monday is when we find out whether they throw it out or let it come to court. They've got every single thing that we've argued. They've argued, we didn't do anything wrong. And when we filed our claim against the person who was the primary SIM swapper, who we've identified, this is a fairly new story. We broke it during CES. Nikolas Tura, another member of OG Users. He was 20 at the time. He's 21 now. He's sitting in prison in San Jose, facing charges of SIM swapping. I think it's 6 or 7 other people. And when they had their bail hearing, they had information from his. They took his laptop, and they had information from his iCloud account that the day of my hack, he messaged his dad and said, "Hey, you shut up. Big things are happening to me. I just made $20 million today." And then he messaged his friends and said, "Hey, I just made $20 million. We're going to the Super Bowl with porn stars," and and just all sorts of incriminating evidence. And as soon as he got jailed, all these resources started calling me and saying, "Hey, I know a little bit more about this. Hey, I know a little bit more of this." And one person in particular literally had tapes of Chris just laying out what
Nikolas.
he did.
Yeah.
I mean, sorry, of Nikolas.
Wow.
Chris was the person who taped him.
Yeah.
So it's all in the.
This kind of seems like to me, though, it's like they're saying AT&T's like, hey, well, once you go after the criminals, it wasn't us. But if the same line of defense that went after Ross Ulbricht, it's like, oh, you built the platform, you're going down. So it's almost like, well, the CEO of AT&T should go down.
I mean, honestly, we're claiming gross negligence and fraud and 15 other things, but their latest thing now is they're adding another thing saying, well, now that you're going after the criminals, that takes us out of it to drop the charges. And it's like, we haven't decided you're not one of the criminals yet. We have 20 does named, and it appears that there was someone from AT&T, whether an agent or whatever is that got bribed. There's been a number of other instances where that's the case. There's something like 2,000 cases being investigated right now just by one law enforcement agent.
Well, and of course, if they lose one, that there's the precedent, right? Now they're in big trouble. Yeah,
that's why they're fighting this one so hard. And they seem to think that if they just simply wait me out, I'm going to run out of money and just drop the case. And it's the opposite. The longer they wait, the more evidence I get and the more arrests that happen. And, we filed a RICO action as the first racketeering action against a crypto gang ever. And we felt it was merited. That was my lawyer's idea. That's treble damages. And we, seized, we got a writ of attachment literally the day we filed it. My lawyer said, Pierce said, in 45 years of being an attorney, he's never seen a writ granted faster. Today, I believe, or Monday is, I think, the last day that Truglia can mount a defense. Otherwise, we just win by default. He does not have a lawyer. He had some fancy lawyers for his criminal defense, but they said they are not going to represent him in his civil trial. And so, that's the very start. And we've begun to identify some of his Confederates. And, we have a number of, and we're still gathering evidence. I mean, we know that there were 5 passports that were used to cash out 22 of the 25 million. And we already have the passport that was for a million of the other ones. And we've identified obviously who that person is. We also believe that a relative of theirs is part of the gang. And, we're just doing good old fashioned, reporting and police work without a badge. We stay in touch with the authorities. We give them information. They don't really give us too much back, but they'll sometimes hint if we're going on a crazy wrong direction. But I'm pretty confident that we're going to I'm going to get my money back, whether it's from AT&T or from the criminals or from some combination. And I have 3 goals here. I mean, it's really taken a big chunk of my life the last year. I mean, I would much rather have been working on, expanding my business and coming up with cool new ideas and investing new things instead of literally spending probably, for I'd say an average of the year, 1/3 of my time. And for the last 2 months, probably 2/3 of my time just working on this because there's just been daily developments ever since.
Well, we're rooting for you here because they do need to be brought to justice, and these carriers their security is a joke, and they need to come into 2019 and learn how to lock these systems down.
Yeah, so I have three. I always tell everybody I have three goals that'll somehow make up the pain and suffering that I've had this last year. Number one, get my money back, hopefully with some punitive, but I'll be happy if I just get the money back. Number two,
well, the coins aren't worth nearly as much though now.
No. The law is that it's you are owed what it was when it was stolen because they cashed in.
Oh, that's true. That's what happened to those guys from Mt. Gox is that Bitcoin was worth $300 or $400 at the time, and they're owed that back.
Well, I don't know what Japanese law is, but in the U.S., it's very clear that the amount of damages is the amount that was stolen and cashed out and laundered.
For sure.
And that was a little shy of 24 million. So that's point one. I want the money back. Number two, I want the gang busted up and made an example of, so that other young, bright criminals don't go that way. But the third one really is to go and convince the telcos, whether it's through the government or preferably through them realizing it's in their own self-interest to solve this problem, which basically will not only not cost them a lot of money, it will save them money in legal fees and in damaged brand. And then once they get the go from being the baddest of the bad guys in the industry to the sort of repentant people who want to do good now, they can take advantage of what I think is a huge opportunity, which is there is no billion user crypto future that does not involve the mobile phone.
Nice. Those are some great ambitions, and let's hope that some good fruit comes out of this. All right, you wanted some jokes. Let's have a quick lightning round here, Michael. Just a free word association. Just going to say things that are crypto or crypto universe related, and just tell us the first thing that comes to mind. Okay, EOS. Nothing's coming to mind. That was that was a very labored thought process right there.
Well, you know what? I have a long history. I have a long history of the EOS. I mean, we had them as a client. I mean, half the people you're going to mention are probably going to be clients. So I have to be careful with either current or former clients. So I have to. But I'd say that they're very promising. They've I think they're being overly punished by the markets right now. When you realize that at the end of the .coms, there were companies that were public companies that had more cash in the bank than the amount of the company's worth. Well, EOS raised $4 billion and their whole market cap is like 2.5. And I realize that it's not like a public company where you can go and liquidate that money with a board and everything, but they can use that money.
Little more lightning here, Michael. A little more lightning. How about all right, here we go. Roger Ver. Roger Ver. Roger Ver.
Bitcoin Jesus. Bitcoin Cash.
That's good. Let's free word association. Bitcoin Cash.
Split.
Indeed it did. John McAfee.
Crazy.
What about the Winklevi?
Split.
Just because there's two of them.
That's right.
We have yet to get them on. We've reached out numerous times, and they are one, or I suppose two of the few who have not replied to say, yes, we will be on Bad Crypto. But we know that day is coming. Crypto Rico.
Where I'm speaking from. Promising. I think that there's still, if I could spend a few minutes on that, since I was the first person from the crypto community to move here in early 2016. I think that, people don't realize that there are not Democrats and Republicans down here. There's three parties. There's there are Spanish names that loosely translate to the I want to be a state party, I don't want to be a state party, and get the hell off my island party. And the Independence Party is the smallest party. They're maybe 4% of the vote, but they're the loudest. Every holiday, they're out there with giant speakers on the back of vans running around town like Sandinistas saying, Yankee, go home. And the other two parties are close enough in numbers, that they kind of tilt every other election, that nobody wants to empower this other party. And this other party is taking crypto on as a negative cause. They're the ones who came out and said, the logic is just mind-boggling, that we are invaders like the U.S. was during World War I, or after the Spanish-American War, and that we are crypto colonialists, and we're going to enslave the people, make them speak English, and make them work for us, and buy large chunks of land and turn it into our private Burning Man palaces.
Don't do that, Michael.
Obviously,
don't do that. That doesn't sound cool.
well, I was going to say, obviously that was sort of like taking, out of context something that, Brock Pierce, who, is a good friend of mine for many, many years, and is one of the most successful people who moved to Puerto Rico at the end of last year, or of 2017. And, came in and said he wants to go and help and empower the people and show them, how solar energy and new technology and blockchain can really empower the island. And, and he's sincere. And they took it as a way, because he also said, because, he has been to Burning Man and he does have a certain persona sometimes where he kind of goes into that mode. He said he wanted to buy a couple 100,000 acres and turn it into like a real kind of crypto utopia, right? And they sort of took that as he's going to invade and take over that. He's never talked about taking over land. He wants to see if anybody's got some for sale. Last I checked, it was perfectly legal and not an aggressive motion to go and buy land that's for sale.
Well, Brock is so threatening too. He's just an imposing guy, right?
No, he like I said, I think that I think there's been a lot of irresponsible journalists who come down here and listen to the first person who jumps in front of the microphone, and it's always the Independence Party. And the Guardian did something where they said, let's listen to the voice of the average Puerto Rican. The average Puerto Rican basically doesn't really even know much about what we're doing. And the ones that do are saying, oh, that's kind of cool. We could use extra jobs down here. One thing that is incredibly encouraging is to find, even though there's about 300 people who have come to the island from the mainland to take advantage of the Act 20 and Act 22 and Act 73 legislation that have incredible tax breaks that are available nowhere else in the world for Americans. Microsoft being, by the way, one of the largest users. Little known fact, all Microsoft Office in the cloud is made in Puerto Rico, and they pay no U.S. tax because of that. They just pay Puerto Rico.
Did not know that.
Yep, they pay 4% to the government of Puerto Rico and 0 to the IRS, because it's made in Puerto Rico and it's shipped outside of Puerto Rico. And when Amazon was looking for its new headquarters, they should have, I think Puerto Rico should have said, forget about the Amazon shipping center. Let's get Amazon Web Services down here. You could be paying 4% tax and nothing to the U.S. But I think that, in politics, you have to basically, be friends with both sides. Right now, you seem to be friendly with the side that's out of power because they're a lot easier to get meetings with. And eventually you're down here enough, because they tend to, swap every other election or so, that you have a little bit of a consistency and a voice and some believability. I got a lot of meetings when I first came down with both parties. They were excited about, sort of doing what Wyoming was doing. And then, I don't know, all of a sudden the price of Bitcoin went down and the Independence Party started saying nasty things about the crypto community. And then all of a sudden, the message of hey, cryptocurrency is a good thing for Puerto Rico to embrace became technology is a good thing for Puerto Rico to embrace. Let's bring Uber and Facebook down here. And, you have to be here to really have an impact. The hurricane did horrible things to the island. One thing that it did do was it also meant that I wasn't able to spend as much time down here when my places didn't have electricity. Now everything's pretty much back to normal, and I'm here and, hoping. You have to make an impact in person. You have to sit down and have meetings and contribute to the parties and, shake hands. And, Brock actually turned me on to the ability to buy a ticket for the closing VIP party for Hamilton on Sunday. Which I'm very delighted that he thought of me. And, I'm sure everybody from the governor on down is going to be at that because it's the last time that Lin-Manuel is probably ever going to play Hamilton. And you just have to show up at places where the people in power say, oh, he's not just some guy that flew in, wants to get something signed, and is going to fly back to New York. So there are
part of the community.
a lot.
Very good.
Part of the community. The other thing also is that the sons and daughters of the natives are now embracing cryptocurrency. I mean, and that's a message that we're sort of trying to tell in 2019. It's not just bringing people down from New York and California and Florida. It's your sons and daughters are listening to the message that came down here, and they're saying, wow, this is our future. There are so many bright engineers on the island. University of Mayajuez or University of Puerto Rico, Mayajuez has like one of the highest percentage of engineering graduates, and most of them have to leave the island because they can't find jobs. And blockchain companies developing down here mean that they can stay on the island. They also have some incredible benefits for people, whether they were born in Puerto Rico or simply moved down here without even going and doing any of the various acts. If you're under the age, I think it is of 26, you pay no income tax up for your first $40,000. Compare that to California. And then if you're, I forget if it's 30 or 35, but your first company, if you do a startup and you sell it before I forget if it's before the age of 30 or before the age of 35, you pay no capital gains tax. So they really encourage innovation. And I think that is why people should come down here and start incubators, because they're going to get a really high quality of people. They're going to be paying very low taxes. They're going to, have the entrepreneurs who are going to be, running the companies, getting incredible tax breaks, and they'll get incredible tax breaks themselves. I can put a little plug in. I do have my third annual Coin Agenda Caribbean, March 1st to 3rd, which is a weekend. You can just fly down from New York or wherever and, go from a place that's cold to a place that's nice and warm. It'll probably be 85 degrees in the day and 78 degrees at night.
You're doing Fire Festival 2.0? It's exciting. Bringing in Ja Rule. We're going to have a concert. That sounds awesome. That sounds awesome.
Well, we did have a concert last year. We always do special things. We actually had a 17-piece Latin jazz band, and we did it in a historic location of Antigua Casino. We had Max Kaiser as one of our speakers. We had about 60 journalists. I certainly encourage, if it's in your schedule, for you guys to come down and cover it in person. Like I said, we had about 60 media last year. Of course, it was, Bitcoin was at a higher price. So we had about 600 people there. We'll probably get a smaller crowd this year, but the year before, when we had a smaller crowd at the start of 2017, even though it was like barely over 100 people, we launched Bancor there, Quantum, Eternity, and everybody stays around and hangs out with everyone on the beach. And it's not one of these conferences where you just go in and see someone on stage and then they disappear. It's everybody hangs out, gets to know each other. It's a really it's like a family. Awesome. And so we do that.
The website is coinagenda.com and Michael's site at transformgroup.com. One last quick question for you, Michael, and that is, if you had to toss all of your crypto investment into one coin or token, what would it be? You only get one.
I'll have to be a purist and say Bitcoin.
I knew you would say that. Thanks a lot, Mike. Appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you.
What a story there, Mr. Travis Wright. I hope that he wins and wins bigly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a jungle out there in the crypto world, and his story is a heartwarming story of it's a lesson, and hopefully that it will actually he'll win in the end. But I tell you what, can you imagine that day waking up and noticing that $24 million was stolen? That would just be like, that'd be the most heart-wrenching thing of all time. Hopefully it turns into a heartwarming story and he gets AT&T and these phone carriers become more secure, because they're not right now. And I experienced that firsthand, episode, I think 41 of Bad Crypto. I got my SIM card swapped because I was on AT&T, and it's sad, man. And you got to make sure that you keep your stuff locked down. Don't keep your cryptos on any exchanges. We've seen a lot of exchanges getting hacked. Don't keep your cryptos easily accessible online, and keep them in a hard wallet if you can. That's the best way. Keep them in a paper wallet. Keep them locked in a vault, right? Bury them in a treasure chest.
put them under your mattress. So yeah, it's definitely not a heartwarming story. If anything, it's a heart warning or a heart burning story.
Heart wrenching, yes.
Right. Our next episode is kind of like part 2 as a follow-up to this interview with Michael Terpin. We also spoke with Oz Sultan, and Oz has a background in the telecommunications industry and counterterrorism and big data. Oz is just a wealth of knowledge, and we talked with him about which of the major carriers are most secure and which are least secure, and learned a lot. So make sure that you tune in to the next episode, which is going to be episode number 236. And while you're at it, since we've got you on the cliffhanger here for the next one, why don't you go over to iTunes or wherever you listen to the show and please give us a review. Make sure that you are subscribed, and then think to yourself, self, I wonder who I know that would benefit from listening to the Bad Crypto Podcast. Make a list. Check it twice. Whether they're naughty or nice, we don't care. Either way, we like listeners, as long as they're not stealing our cryptos. And tell them about the show.
Yeah, we like listeners that aren't stealing our crypto. If you're a listener who steals our crypto, I don't like you. So you know.
Yeah,
but hey, if you like listening to Joel and Travis, and maybe other people as well that we chat with, we do have another podcast that has launched that is doing pretty well. It's called The Bad Boys of Tech. And we talk about, tech news, gadgets and apps, stuff that's not blockchain related. So if you want to talk to us and listen to us do that as well, you can do that once a week. We're doing an episode of that. So we're having fun chatting about tech, and we love crypto. We're going to keep doing the Bad Crypto Show because we love it. We're not going to stop doing this because we love you guys. We love tech too, so we're going to do that. So go check it out.
Exactly what we're going to do. Until then, stay bad. The Bad Crypto Podcast is a production of Bad Crypto LLC. The content of the show, the videos, and the website is provided for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only. It's not intended to be and does not constitute financial, investment, or trading advice of any kind. You shouldn't make any decisions as to finances, investing, trading, or anything else based on this information without undertaking independent due diligence and consultation with a professional financial advisor. Please understand that the trading of Bitcoins and alternative cryptocurrencies have potential risks involved. Anyone wishing to invest in any of the currencies or tokens mentioned on this podcast should first seek their own independent professional financial advisor.
Crypto didn't exist. We had to wait for Satoshi and to make up all this shit. My crypto goes up and our crypto goes down. Michael Terpin had his crypto stolen and he had a really big frown. Bad. That was a bad day for him. A really, really bad day for him.
Who's bad?
Seasons change. Spring training slides into the regular season. Summer cools into fall. Leaves change their color. Lives change their shape. Change is life's only constant. AAA Insurance is here to be your guide through life's journey. Protect what matters most. Make sure you have the right insurance for whatever season of life you're in. Talk to your local AAA insurance agent today. Visit AAA.com for details.